For centuries, women have been told what to wear, how to behave, and what their role in society should be by men, all in the name of religion. The Islamic hijab is often presented as a choice, a symbol of modesty and faith. But is it really a choice when refusal can lead to punishment, being shunned by the society, or even resorting to violence? The truth is, in many parts of the world, the hijab is not just a piece of cloth. It is a tool of control, a means of oppression used to police women's bodies and enforce religious ideology. While some may wear it willingly, millions have no choice at all. This video will break down the historical, political, and religious roots of the hijab, exposing how it has been used to suppress women's rights and silence dissent. Let us uncover the reality behind the veil, how it began, and what does the Quran and Hadith say about women covering themselves. By the way, did you know that had there been toilets in 7th century Arabia, Muslim women would not have had to wear this black veil of oppression? This and much more is coming up in this video. Hi, I am Anand and you are watching Pale Blue Thoughts, the channel which stands tall among the cacophony of religious intolerance and aims to bring out the worst practices in religions. If you're new, please click subscribe and enable the bell icon. And if you're a regular viewer, please consider to support the channel by becoming a member and contribute to spreading rationality and scientific temper in our societies. So, without wasting any more time, let's begin.
If the law of Allah is implemented, women will have to be in hijab. They will have to dress the way Allah commanded them to dress, not the way any human being commanded them to dress.
Let us first see what the Quran says about women's clothes in general. The first mention is in Surah 7:26, which states that Allah has given mankind libas and rish. Libas refers to the clothes that are used to cover the private parts, while rish refers to the outer adornments used for purposes of beautification like ornaments and outer clothes. Therefore, the first type is essential, while the second type is complementary. So this verse just asks people to cover their nakedness or private parts from shame. The next verse is in 24:31, Surah Al-Nur. Here it says that women should keep their gaze down and should protect their private parts. This is self-explanatory. Women should not look at other men and should safeguard her chastity. She should not reveal her clothes or ornaments except that which is revealed by itself, and to draw their veils over their bosoms. That is, they should wear the head cover in such a way as to cover their chests. They should cover everything except their hands and face. No other part of a woman's body should be exposed before any other man. The woman is not allowed to wear a thin or tight-fitting dress which might reveal the skin or outlines of the body. There is also a hadith where Muhammad asked his wife to cover themselves when a blind man came to visit the Prophet. When they questioned as to why should they cover themselves when the man cannot see, the Prophet is said to have replied, "So what? You can see him." Such a caring husband, wasn't he? Amongst the Prophet. The surah then asked the women not to reveal their adornment except to their husbands, or their fathers, or their husbands' fathers, or their sons, or their husbands' sons, or their brothers, or their brothers' sons, or their sisters' sons. All of these are a woman's close relatives whom she can never marry, called as mahram. By the way, the word adornment that are used means any attractive clothes, ornaments, and other decorations of the head, face, hand, feet, etc. Some translators have extended the word to mean a woman's beauty, including makeup. So some say ornaments and some say beauty. To each one's own. Mind you, this is God's word, but each mufassir interprets it according to his own patriarchal standards. Now, according to the tafsirs, it is permissible for other Muslim women to see the adornments of another Muslim woman, but she should cover herself in front of non-Muslim women. This, according to many tafsir writers, is because non-Muslim women may describe the woman to their husbands, thereby causing them to lust after the Muslim women, as if any wife is going to do that. Also, slave girls are exempted from the list. Also, are slave men who are not virile. Now, it was customary in those days to remove the testicles of slave men so that they cannot experience sexual desires. Such slaves were allowed to see Muslim women without a covering. If a child is small and does not understand matters related to sex, there is nothing wrong with him seeing another woman. But if he is an adolescent or approaching adolescence, then he should not see any woman without a covering. The verse continues to ask women not to stomp their feet or move their legs in such a way that another man can hear the sounds of her ornaments tinkling. During Jahiliyyah, when women walked in the street wearing anklets and no one could hear them, they would stamp their feet so that men could hear their anklets ringing. Allah forbade the believing women to do this. By the same token, if there is any other kind of adornment that is hidden, women are forbidden to make any movements that would reveal what is hidden. So basically, this means that the Muslim woman should cover any ornaments that she wears using the hijab. Now, a question that may arise in your mind is, why then should ornaments be worn if no one else can see it? Allahu Alam. Only Allah knows. I know, by the way, Muslim women are also prohibited from wearing perfumes or deodorants when they are going outside their home, lest men should smell their perfume and get them excited. Hadiths say that any woman who wears perfumes outside her home is an adulteress, meaning a prostitute. How considerate. Forget all this. Tafsirs say that even the voices of women should not be heard by other men. So much for freedom of women. If you look closely at this verse, one can understand that even before women were asked to cover their bosoms, they used to wear some sort of head covering, which is why the ayah says to drop their head covering over their chests. This is pretty understandable because a headscarf would offer some protection from the harsh sun and dust winds in the sub-Saharan desert. Both men and women used to wear head coverings to protect themselves in those days, similar to how we use caps or hats these days. But this was not used to hide the hair like how it is interpreted by the Islamists. Now the final verse where hijab is mentioned is in 33:59 in the chapter Al-Ahzab, which is one of the most ridiculous chapters in the entire book. One just needs to read this chapter to lose one's iman or belief in the religion. Here it asks the wives and daughters of Muhammad and all believing women to wear the hijab. Why? So that they can be recognized and not harassed. Now, use your common sense and tell me, if something is fully covered, would you be able to recognize it or would it be hidden? If someone covers themselves and comes out into the open, no one can tell who is inside it, whether it is a young woman or an old woman, whether it is even a man or a woman. But Allah is very clear here. It is for women to be recognized. Now here comes the real nature and history of the hijab. Umar, who was one of Muhammad's companions, wanted the women to be veiled. So he asked Muhammad many times to reveal the verse of veiling, but each time Muhammad refused. Now here itself, it is very clear that it was not Allah but Muhammad who was behind the revelation of all the verses in the Quran. So Umar decided to do something about it. In those days, there were no toilets in the tents or houses where these Arabs used to stay. So the women used to go onto the open fields to defecate. This they used to do late in the evenings or night for obvious reasons. And at that time, there were some people who used to lie in wait for these women to catcall them and to try and pick them up. Umar was one amongst them. So one day, one of Muhammad's wife, Sauda, who was a tall woman, went to defecate in a field. Umar spotted her and called out, "I have spotted you, Sauda." An embarrassed Sauda went to the Prophet and complained about what Umar did. And Allah is said to have revealed the verse of the hijab then. Isn't it pretty obvious here who is behind all these revelations? Was it just revealed to save the wives of Muhammad from embarrassment from the e-teasers? No. Here is where the twist in the tale of why the verse mentions so that women can be recognized. Here the women means free women. I don't say it. Mufassirs have clearly mentioned it. Hijab was the way Umar wanted free women to roam around so that they can be identified in between slave women. Slave women were not allowed to wear the veil or cover their bosoms. So if someone is wearing a veil, the Eve teachers can know that it is a free woman, thereby recognizing their status and stay away from harassing them. But slave women and women of other religions can be harassed at will. This is what Allah meant when He said, so that they can be recognized and not harassed. How considerate and merciful is Allah, right? And this is why I said, had there been toilets in the days of Muhammad, Muslim women wouldn't have been required to wrap themselves up like toffee. Oh Modi ji, you were born about 14 centuries late and the wrong part of the world. So in reality, the real reason for the verse of hijab was not to hide the beauty of women, but to recognize slave women from amongst all the non-slave women. Now some people who support the hijab have come up with several justifications to support this immoral act. They say it is for the protection of women. They even cite the examples of how toffees are protected from ants by using wrappers. My response to that is this: women are not objects. Comparing women to toffees, candies, or any other inanimate objects is dehumanizing. Women are not commodities that need to be wrapped to maintain their worth. They are individuals with autonomy, intelligence, and the right to exist without being treated as temptations that must be concealed. This argument shifts the responsibility of controlling male impulses onto women, implying that harassment is the fault of the victim rather than the perpetrator. If men's desires are supposedly uncontrollable, shouldn't the solution be to teach men self-control rather than forcing women to cover themselves? Just think about it. A just society holds individuals accountable for their actions, not their targets. If the hijab truly protected women from harassment, then countries with mandatory veiling laws should have little to no cases of sexual violence. But the reality is different. Nations with strict dress codes like Iran, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia still experience widespread harassment, proving that covering up does not eliminate predatory behavior. In fact, it often emboldens perpetrators who see uncovered women as fair game and those in hijab as submissive. Also, modesty is not a universal standard. What is considered modest is entirely subjective and dictated by cultural and religious conditioning. Women's dignity should not be measured by how much skin they cover. Another way they downplay this is by asking whether you want everyone to wear a bikini instead. This is a logical fallacy called the false dichotomy. Islamists often present a false choice. Either accept the hijab or you're pushing for women to walk around in bikinis. But this is absurd. All cultures around the world have dress codes that are neither hijabs nor bikinis. What is wrong if they wear a sari or a salwar or a shirt and a denim? A woman should have the right to wear whatever she wants, whether it's a hijab, a t-shirt, or denim, or whatever, without coercion or punishment. In secular societies, women are free to dress as they please, and that is exactly the point: choice. Look at these reels which have been widely shared on Instagram recently.
शेरों के कबीले की आगोशित पाले हैं, बातिल से नहीं डरते, हम लोग जियाले हैं। अंधों को खबर क्या है ये हिजाब अपना, तहजीब के आंचल में अजमत के उजाले हैं। अंधों को खबर क्या है ये हिजाब अपना, तहजीब के आंचल में अजमत के उजाले।
Do you still want to say hijab is just a choice? And oh, can you say no to hijab? No? Then how can it be a choice? Many argue that the hijab is just a religious dress code, no different from a nun's habit or a Jewish yarmulke. But there is a key difference. No one forces all Christian women to dress like nuns. No one punishes all Jewish men for not wearing a yarmulke. But in many Islamic societies, all women are expected are forced to wear the hijab regardless of personal belief. A religious dress code is only legitimate when it is voluntary. The hijab is rarely a free choice. It is enforced through laws, family pressure, and societal shaming. Even in moderate Muslim countries, women who don't wear the hijab are often harassed or labeled as immoral. This makes it not just a religious rule, but a system of control over women. This 6th century tribalistic mindset paves the way for more restrictions, and Islamists keep moving the goalpost over time. First it was cover the body, then cover the face, then cover the hair. If covering the hair and face is not enough, then stay home. If that is not enough, ban windows in homes. Don't believe me? You think I am overreacting? Then see this news from a friendly neighborhood, Afghanistan. The Taliban's justification for this fatwa is that men might see women through the window and feel lustful. Or it could be the other way around. Anyways, this means they're openly admitting that they believe men are so weak and animalistic that simply glimpsing a woman's silhouette is too much for them to handle. This news proves that the hijab was never about modesty. It was always about controlling and restricting women's visibility and movement. This fatwa isn't just absurd, it is a symptom of a larger goal to make women disappear from public life. Under the Taliban, women can't work outside their homes. They can't go to school after 6 years. They can't travel without a male guardian. Now, they can't even be seen through a window while cooking. What is next? Banning women from speaking in their own homes because their voices might tempt men outside? Instead of demanding that men control themselves, they demand that women disappear. This is not only sexist towards women, it is also insulting to men, portraying them as uncontrollable beasts with no self-restraint. And you know what is the worst thing? The Taliban's restrictions is Islamic. Ask any moderate Muslim and they will not be able to deny it. They will try to wiggle out of admitting it. But the hijab is not a choice for most women. In December 2017, an Iranian woman, later identified as Vida Movahed, became a symbol of resistance by publicly removing her headscarf in Tehran. Standing on a utility box in a street, she waved her white hijab on a stick, protesting Iran's mandatory hijab law. This act of defiance inspired numerous women across the country to follow suit, leading to a movement known as Girls of Revolution Street. In response to these protests, Iran authorities arrested several women for removing their headscarves in public. And then came the telling blow, again from Iran. In September 2022, Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman in Iran, was killed. Iran's so-called morality police arrested her for improper hijab. Reports indicate that she was beaten into a coma while in custody, leading to her death 3 days later. Her crime? Some strands of hair were showing under her hijab. Her murder sparked massive protests across Iran and all across the world, with thousands of women burning their hijabs and chanting, "Women, life, freedom." The Iranian regime responded with brutal crackdowns, killing hundreds, jailing thousands, and enforcing even stricter hijab laws. This exposes the real function of the hijab in many religious societies. It is not a symbol of protection, but a religious tool for control and subjugation. It dictates what women can wear, how they can exist in public, and punishes those who refuse to comply. Women like Mahsa Amini paid the price for defying this oppressive system. As long as the hijab remains compulsory rather than optional, it will continue to be a weapon against women, not a shield for them. As recently as November 2024, Ahu Daryai, an Iranian student, was arrested in Iran for stripping down and walking around her university campus in her underwear in apparent protest over allegedly being assaulted for not wearing a hijab. And such protests would continue. How long can you keep women oppressed? Isn't 1400 years enough? The hijab is not just a piece of cloth. It is a symbol of religious control over women's bodies. It is not about modesty, because modesty standards are applied unequally. It is not a religious dress code, because women are forced to comply whether they want to or not. The real debate isn't about clothing. It is about women's rights, freedom, and autonomy. The question is simple. If a woman truly had a choice, would she still wear the hijab if there were no laws, social pressure, or consequences for removing it? In many places, the answer is very clear. When given a chance, millions of women are taking it off. Coincidentally, 1st of February is celebrated as Hijab Day by Islamists, where on the other side, Yasmin Mohammed, a Canadian writer and women's rights activist, supported by many other ex-Muslims, have started the No Hijab Day on the same day to protest the World Hijab Day. She created the day to counter the idea that hijab is a choice. Let us celebrate that day. And with the ex-Muslim movement gaining traction, such protests would continue to happen. And women would be the ultimate winner at the end of it. Now here is my final take on this whole subject. According to the Quran and the Hadiths, the hijab is just a cloth that free women were asked to wear in order to make them distinguishable from slave women. Slavery no longer exists except in Islam. So should the hijab. The real issue is not what women wear, but whether they are free to choose. A society that truly respects women will protect their rights, not by forcing them to cover up, but by ensuring that they are safe, regardless of what they wear. The hijab is a religious tool for oppressing women, period. And anyone who values logic, humanity, and equality should reject it outright. I hope you liked today's episode. If you have reached till here, please do press the like or even the dislike button and let me know your thoughts on hijab in the comment section. Also, if you found the information useful, do share it with your social media circles. Any action that you take on this video prompts the YouTube algorithm to show this video to more people, thereby increasing the channel's reach. Please continue to support me via super thanks and by becoming a member of my channel, which would help me make even better content. I shall be back soon with another interesting video. Until then, it's bye-bye from Pale Blue Thoughts.